is kind of like a PSA, a public service announcement, a little bit of a help to you, hopefully, from me, a wizened old fellow, trying to lead you through the pitfalls and traps of a new edition for Age of Sigmar. Now, of course, a new edition hasn't yet officially been announced. We expect that to be on the reveal for Adepticon. That's when we expect to see it. However, with the new edition coming, you always have to ask the question, is it going to be an index edition? And you might have seen this being written online. You might have seen this talked about in podcasts or YouTube shows or whatever it might be. And so you might have heard the term index edition. So I'm going to just talk you through that. Also, maybe talk about what Age of Sigmar 4, kind of like the journey through it. Because this might be, I only got into Age of Sigmar during Age of Sigmar 3, Rob. I don't really know why and what happens and what's going on. So let's talk about that. Right now, there is an ongoing series of narrative books called the Dawnbringer Crusade books. We're on book 5, and I think we're going to get a book 6 is where we are. And then this is not a the chat are being mean to me. This is a public service announcement, not a potato store announcement. We're not starting a potato store, but soon. They are doing a bunch of narrative books, and those narrative books are lead up to the kind of 4th edition narrative. Now, they're locked behind a campaign book, I guess, although they have match play rules inside of them. And there are a series of I've enjoyed them. I've read the first 3. They're not, what do you expect? For the price tag, £30, obviously, you should expect something insanely good. But instead, you've got something that's there, I guess, as a fantasy fan. There's other good books to go read. Go read other good books instead. However, there is a story, and it's ongoing. And, you can see synopses. I've done 2 videos on them. You can go watch them if you want to watch them. They're actually more deep dives than synopsises, to be honest, because I quite like the content that's in Age of Sigmar, so I've been reading through it. Anyway, they're leading up to 4th edition, which will be always in the summer. In fact, it'll probably be July the 24th. and how do I know such things? No, let me just look at the calendar quickly. July 20th or July 27th or something like that. How can I possibly know even the date? Well, simply because Games Workshop do the same thing every single year. They release a new edition at around July, which breaks up the financial year. And therefore, that's when they do it, so that they can either put loads of money into the beginning of a new financial year. That's effectively how it works. So that's why it's going to be there. What will the launch look like? Well, there'll be a launch, or it might be even earlier. It'll be around July. Who knows? But there'll be a big launch box. It'll have 2 armies. We know this one will be Skaven, and it's going to be Stormcast. We're pretty certain that we've heard rumours that Stormcast is just the Age of Sigmar 1 Stormcast that have been revised. So if you've been following any 40k, and if you haven't, I'm sorry, then they had little Space Marines, and then they made slightly bigger Space Marines called Primaris Marines. And so effectively, you're going to see the same thing, I think, in this. Now, Age of Sigmar has had an interesting history where you normally, if you're new, and for some reason you don't know, and you're watching this video, Age of Sigmar, what happens is they do a launch box, and then your battle tome will get updated for a new battle tome that works in that edition. Because normally your battle tome won't work in a new edition. Although that's not been true for many of the last few editions for Age of Sigmar, which has been cool. Instead, this is very likely to be an index edition. And an index edition works very differently. It means that all of the battle tomes that are currently on sale are and will be invalid. Now, that's if it's a index edition. If it's not an index edition, then what'll happen is you'll just get your new book at some point through this process. However, you will. However, if it is an index edition, all of the old books are invalid. They don't work. Sure, your lore and your narrative is in there, and I've always said don't buy the books anyway, so there we go. And so what will that mean? What will index look like? So what it'll be is like a stripped down version of your rule set, probably, and then you'll have maybe, I don't know if allegiance abilities will even make it through, but you'll have a smaller kind of tool set than you do in a current battle tome. Maybe you'll have less sub-factions. Maybe those sub-factions will be less impactful. Maybe you'll have less items, things like that. They'll all be shortened down, basically, and they'll be slimmer. And then what will happen is you'll end up waiting some amount of time for your new battle tome with your expanded rules. So it's effectively like you get a character where all the DLC is locked over the course of 3 years. And that becomes a real problem for some people because obviously if you're a Stormcast player, amazing, you're going to get your battle tome. Skaven and Stormcast will get their battle tomes first, so you'll be all good. Although there's a bit of a problem there, and there's whoever normally faces off against Stormcast in the launch box normally is cursed to be terrible. Cruel Boys, as an example, Nighthaunt before them generally tend to be really bad, and then it was Khorne Bloodbound before that. All of them sucked when they were released, so just a little bit cautious on the Skaven front. Skaven fans, I apologize. I hope you dodged the curse. Maybe you've been doing machinations to make that happen up until this one where you're super OP, who knows. But normally there's a curse. However, you two will be getting your battle tomes with all the information and all of the expanded rule set for your army. And this is a bit of a problem with the index system that Games Workshop have, because this means that you could be waiting up to 3 years for your army to get their expanded rules. Well, 2 3/4 years, because obviously in 3 years after that will be the new edition. Now, this is the same cycle that they use for Warhammer 40,000, which is their flagship business, and obviously the one that makes them all of the money. So if it works for them, it definitely is something that will work for this. Obviously, I'd love your thoughts and feelings, so let me know right now. Everything I've spoken about so far, let me know what you think. But what's going to happen is they are going to do all these indexes, and there's another problem. They do all of this index testing in isolation. And as we saw with 10th edition 40k, which is their flagship game, was super broken. 2 of the armies had 70% win rates. Like several of the armies had like below 40% win rates. They really struggled. So they didn't do a great job at launch. As I understand it now, it's okay. They also had some fundamental core rules changes. They changed how they had these things where they had abilities that happened on 6s to hit and abilities that happened on 6s to wound. And then they had to like fundamentally change core rules because they just didn't work at release. So it's kind of interesting because you would think a fully fleshed out index edition that they release would have this like competent kind of like well-structured, well-thought-out process because they don't have to, put plasters over rule sets that they are bringing in. They're not bringing in any legacy rules. They're starting from fresh, which is kind of interesting. So that's what an index would look like. And then you would be playing your indexes until you got your new battle tome. Probably in conjunction, along with this, you'll end up with a new General's Handbook. They'll probably be a year long. The latest 40k versions are a year long. They're probably done away with a 6-month version. Let me know if you think that's good or bad. But those GHBs will be in place, and then that will give you your missions and the ways to play for the next year. So that's probably what we'll end up seeing. Now, I bet there's a bunch of questions, and chat are going to help me out now because there's a bunch of questions that people wanted to ask about. I thought this was really self-explanatory, but people were really confused by this process. Or I should also say that probably they're going to say that all those indexes are free. If they do indexes, again, I don't know if this is definite, but probably if they do, all of those indexes will be free. And they'll be like, yes, we've invalidated all of the books that you bought, but we've put rules online for free. So they'll be on free and they'll be in the app. This is kind of a positive, kind of a negative. Some people consider this to be the golden time in an edition because everyone has access to everyone's rules. Everyone can see everyone's rules. Everyone can like look through rules for free versus them being behind a paywall. And then they get to be like, oh, that looks cool. Actually, I'll start playing Tau. Or, if it's Age of Sigmar and all the rules are free, you may never have seen the rules for Cruel Boys, and you might be like, oh, do you know what? That sounds really cool, actually. I'll go play those. So some people consider it to be a golden time. It's definitely the Wild West, which is really fun. Rules don't make sense. FAQs are needed almost like instantaneously. Everything's a bit balked. Tournament players are just absolutely wrecking the game, which is always best fun. Love tournament players. They're the best. They're just out there causing mayhem. They're making so many different FAQs have to happen almost consistently. People are discussing whether or not Holy Within means Holy Within. Who even knows? It might not. For Age of Sigmar 2, the launched Age of Sigmar 2, which I covered because I've been doing this for a very long time, they had command abilities that were able to stack. And instead of just saying you can't stack command abilities, one FAQ, they individually FAQ'd each command ability. What this meant was that a man called Donal was able to make a single grot netter once do 192 damage at an international tournament because they just don't think it through. And it was very funny. So the Wild West, the best of times, the very most fun of times. So it's a fun time. Effectively, is what it could be. Now, some of the questions I got asked were, why are they doing this? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They're a company who want to make money. There's kind of like pros and cons. And where do I fit in it? Where do I settle on it? I don't know. I'll talk about that in a minute. The pro is that you're probably going to find people who had no interest in Age of Sigmar, but will buy into the hype. As an example, with 10th edition 40k, they described it as simpler, not simple. And therefore, people were super hype. They were like, oh, finally, 40k is going to be simple, right? And I'm able to play. So what they do is they find what they think is the most marketable kind of tagline, and they use that to pitch it. They're like, this is, whether or not it is simple or not, it's definitely not simple, 40k. It's boring. But like, they just make a tagline. They say, this is what it's going to be, throw it out there. That's what they do. And what this does, rightly or wrongly, is there's a whole bunch of hobbyists who are fairly casual who are like, now I'm going to start playing Age of Sigmar. Like now, like, oh, they've said it's going to be like super easy and I'm going to like have a good time. Love that, right? They've said that there's like, they'll say dynamic active gameplay or something. And then people are like, yeah, that's really what I've always wanted is dynamic active gameplay. It doesn't mean anything. It's just marketing. But that's why they normally will reset an edition, because it actually generates a wealth of new people into Age of Sigmar. I guess the first question is, do we need a wealth of new people into Age of Sigmar? The answer is yes, always. More people, more friends that we can make and more people to play with is excellent. But Age of Sigmar is actually doing really, really well. All around the world, our event numbers are up. Me and Wargamer Rob, love that guy, do event stats from events happen around the world. We do that in the Age of Sigmar Stats Center. And event numbers are just up. Number of people playing is up. Number of people attending is up. The number of times those people are attending events is up. So it's not like they're just going to an event to get a number and going home. They're going to an event, loving it, and going to the next event, and that number is increasing, which is pretty great. Does this directly equate to sales? No, obviously. Like, you can get the books online on Wikipedia, 3D print an army, and go play at an event, and you've never even given Games Workshop a penny, and that's fine, in my personal opinion. Like, you could disagree with me in the comments below, feel free. I personally think that's very valid. It's your money, it's your time, it's your energy. You go play games with your friends in the way that you think is important and good. But that doesn't mean it doesn't directly equate to sales. Is there a huge swath of people doing this? I don't think so. I think there's some people, but I don't think there's like, I don't think 50% of the audience is doing it. I think just some people are doing it. And therefore, but sales might just be down. And I guess the real question is why might sales be down over the past year? I'll leave that to people who really like deep dive Games Workshop and their sales stuff and what's good and what's not. It's not really what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the content. And an index edition is, I guess this is my point to say, what do I think about it? An index edition is always rough on the consumer, but it's great for me making content. I don't know what to say. Like, I can just be live for like months, just talking about new army builds, new play styles, new ways to play. So I guess that's quite exciting. And I'm really excited like that as a player, as a person who analyzes players and a person who plays, I guess. It's an opportunity to make fun, interesting content. There's lots of memes that come out of this stuff, which is great. But like, that's me being just truthfully very honest, like truthfully very, very honest. There's just so much data. It's like what we've just gone through with the old world, as an example. There's been so much data and content to work through. And I'm a bit of a content fiend. I love all of the information. I think it's great. We've been just going through the Dawnbringers rules. No one cares about them. Like, absolutely zero people care about them. Like, did you know you could take Manfred in a regiment of renown? And actually, right now, that's a super popular build in tournaments. Probably about sub 230,000 people in the world even remotely care about that in the whole world. And that's fine. That's my people. That's the people who I care about. It's people who I like making content about. That's fun. But like, I would like the game to be what's best for you. I'd like all rules to be free. I've said this 1,000 times. I'd like all rules to be free. I'd like all GHBs to be free. I'd like them to have like active like tracking of stats and player information online so people can make some really fun stuff. This is something I've always advocated for. For that stuff that I think you people should all get. So I want to be really clear about that. But it will be a wild west if it ends up being indexes. But then we get to make loads of videos. We get to make loads of memes, which is really funny. Do you think that when someone did 192 damage with a goblin, that the internet wasn't absolutely on fire? People were screaming at each other. People were furious. People were laughing. It was literally like the last days of Rome. Like things were burning. People were crying. It was hilarious. And like, I don't know, I mean, kind of the point I'm into for wargaming, a Games Workshop wargame. Games Workshop wargames are like bellicose, right? They're big and grandiose, but absolutely, they're Trump Tower. They're that globe that they've got in Las Vegas. They're gaudy. They're messy. They're just messy bitches. That's what they are. Games Workshop are messy bitches. The games they produce are messy bitches, but absolutely swimming around in that hilarity is awesome, and I like it. So I'm looking forward to Age of Sigmar 4th edition. I hope this has brought some clarity. If you do have any more questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. Hope that's answered those questions. What would be a question? What am I going to do with my current collection? Will my army be invalid? I don't know. Maybe some elements of your army, like some units, might just get what we call squatted, which is deleted out the game. Maybe some units will be, maybe whole armies will go. I don't know. Like, it's not fear-mongering. Just Games Workshop don't have a communication. They don't have a community manager that deals with this game as a wholesale thing, and they don't have communication with their customer base outside of marketing. Marketing and communication are very different. They have a marketing channel, which is Warhammer Community, but they do not have a community management structure where they interact with the customers, they discuss what's going to happen in the future, they give roadmaps, generally what they tend to not do. And therefore, I can't give you any information because Games Workshop don't give any information, which is sad, and I wish that was not the case. Anyway, let me know what you think of the video, always. Just trying to be helpful. This isn't meant to be like a viral video or go very far. I'm sure it'll have like fucking no views and no one care. But thank you to everyone on Patreon who supports me, because I'm able to then just make content that isn't for the mass market, which is great. I just get to make content for you, which is nice. So thank you to Patreon. You're the best, and I love you forever.